Hey everybody, and welcome back, or welcome if you are new. Hello, hi. So I really don't know what to title this video, but I did have something in mind, and let me just tell you this. So for those of you who've been here a while now, hello, hi, nice to see you again. You will know that my favorite genres are extreme horror and thrillers and the smut. But I'm here to announce today that I am a multifaceted, very nuanced being. I have nuance, I have depth. So with that being said, outside of those three main genres of mine, I do have a very eclectic taste in books. I will read pretty much anything of any genre, not as frequently, but it's something that I have done, and as such, I've been able to find stories that truly meant something to me as a person. And today I'm going to be telling you about some 5-star reads that I read that were not horror, not thriller. These are things that most people can read without having to prepare themselves for something horrific. So today I'm going to be telling you about some books that meant a lot to me as a person that I read in the year of 2022. So with that being said, let's start. First one I'm going to talk about is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. This book meant so much to me because of how relatable I found certain aspects of it to be, maybe a lot of aspects of it to be. And the story it told is just one that I think is so important in today's society, in today's economy especially. And I just loved it so much. It hit a bit too close to home. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so let me just tell you what it's about. We follow this woman named Keiko, and she has never really fit in with her family, never really had a huge group of friends, was always very much seen as an outcast in school, and she ends up working in this convenience store in Tokyo, Japan called Smile Mart. And it's in this convenience store where she finds peace, where she finds purpose, and the rules of social interaction are actual rules. Her employers do give her a template for her to act in certain social situations, certain social cues to observe, certain ways with interacting with people. And if you know me, I am a fucking introvert, okay? I have literally no social skills whatsoever. I am the most socially incapable person in the world. If you ever meet me in person, which I highly doubt because I rarely leave the house because of social fucking anxiety, I will not know what to do. So sorry if I come off as rude. I literally just don't know how to handle myself in social situations. So the fact that this woman who shared the same shit that I did was in this job where they would teach her how to handle certain people and how to talk to people is like, bitch, I need that shit, okay? Like, I need someone to tell me what to fucking do because I don't know what to fucking do ever. So she does her best to blend in as a normal person, and her co-workers and people around her pressure her to adhere to society's expectations, like advancing in the job ladder, you know, wanting more for yourself, wanting a husband, getting married at that age, wanting kids. Her parents, her family pressures her to want more for herself career-wise, and they find it unfathomable that someone could potentially be getting actual fulfillment working in a convenience store and not have the desire to make it to the next level in life, you know what I mean? Major air quotes, because like, what is the next level? At the end of the day, what is the ultimate goal? Dick. And they constantly try to signal to her that she's an embarrassment. And ultimately, I just felt so much for Keiko. I just felt so much for this book. This book said so many things about just life and the world that I empathized with. Keiko is a very sympathetic person who I just wanted to give a damn hug to because I was like, bitch, I know how you fucking feel, bitch. Yeah, this book was written with that beautiful, nuanced Japanese slice of life kind of way. The storytelling was very laid back. It's never bombastic, it's never overwrought. There are such strong emotions and feelings of anxiety and inadequacy and shame at play, but they're never overplayed. They're always very much presented as the underlying thing. And all that beautiful storytelling, in addition to the relatability, the sympathetic nature of the character, just made this such a beautiful story to me. And it was, you know, very relatable because I am someone who is an immigrant to a new country, looking for work, struggling, you know, and a lot of her struggles were ones that I saw in myself, and I just loved her and this story so much. And Sayaka Murata for actually putting out a story that I personally rarely see in books, in movies, and just overall a fucking amazing read. 5 stars, amazing, beautiful, moving on. Okay, so another book that I'm really grateful for that I read this year was one that I have had on my TBR for probably the longest time. Like, I had owned this book for so long, and I only read it this year. I gave it 5 fucking stars, okay? That book is Winger by Andrew Smith. Before this, I had read Andrew Smith before. I read Grasshopper Jungle, I gave it 4 stars. It was good, I didn't love it though. But Andrew Smith's writing is amazing. I literally love his sense of humor. I love his character's inner monologue. I love the little side comments he makes. It's just dry and sarcastic, and it just speaks to my fucking being, okay? There is such a distinct flavor to this writing that I just love. I definitely wasn't expecting to love this book as much as I did. I definitely wasn't expecting to be as invested in this story as I ultimately was. But when I say that I was hooked from first page to last, like that opening scene, the way that opening scene goes down and the way it's written about, yes, yes. So we follow this kid named Ryan Dean West. He goes to this, like, you know, rich preppy school. He plays rugby, and he ends up realizing on the first day that he's dorming with one of the biggest bullies on the rugby team. In addition to that, he has this, you know, separate group of friends. He's got this friend named Annie, this girl that he has a crush on, but he's also friends with, so what's he gonna do about that? And honestly, what this book is about isn't so important, okay? And I say this because what matters most, or what meant the most to me reading this book, was seeing just how Andrew Smith evokes the vibes of middle adolescence and all of the anxieties that comes with it. What I was left with was both a sense of nostalgia and gratitude that this phase in my life was finally over and that I never have to ever go back to that shit, you know? Like, I'm dealing with enough of my own shit today, but back then was just as like, what the fuck, man, you know? From overthinking the smallest things to the anxieties that come with having your first crush. Yeah, Smith's exploration of the over-anxious teenage mind definitely does ring true many times. And his writing, oh my gosh, his characters are crude, they're tactless, they're brazen, they're borderline cruel and very solipsistic, yet so fucking human. Like, this book was just so real, you know? And the writing is just laid back and snarky and cynical and sarcastic, you know, just the way I like it. I write on my books when I annotate them, and I found myself writing a giant LOL besides so many paragraphs. The humor in this definitely does get really pitch black and will definitely rub some people the wrong way, which I love, okay? I love it when authors do things that could piss someone off but are willing to take that risk. I also loved the quirky comic strips because this character is this artist who draws, so there are illustrations littered throughout the book, and they're just so funny and cute, and the way they match the context of the story and ultimately comment on the story as well is just so well done. And although the narrative is meandering, it's never lethargic. I couldn't help but feel that there was some sense of unpredictable danger lurking in every corner as day turned to night, particularly near the end. Like, oh my gosh, that scene in the end was really fucking shocking. Yet despite this, Andrew Smith finds a way to pepper in some of the sweetest, heartfelt conversations that I have ever read in a book this year. I struggled to wipe the smile off my face at times. And despite all the crudeness, I think this book does successfully argue that actions do speak louder than words, and they matter more than, you know, mere words alone. And I absolutely just love the character of Joey so much. He was smart, he was strong, he was capable, and I dug his banter with the book smart but ultimately clueless protagonist Ryan. I would say, like, I can't believe it took me so long to read this book, but I feel like something in the universe was conspiring to make me wait and only let me read this book at this age, because I feel like I appreciated it so much more now than I could have ever appreciated it when I was younger. Like, if I had read it back then, I don't know if I would see just how well done the book was, as opposed to having read it now at this age, having gone through more in life, you know? But yeah, this book was just fucking amazing, and I just loved the hell out of it. Another book I want to talk about is a memoir called I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I know a lot of you are probably like, McKay, you're so late to the party. Literally everyone's read this. Bitch, I didn't just read this book, okay? I read this book fucking when it came out. The only thing is that it came out when I was in my 2-month hiatus. Yeah, for those of you who've been following me, you will know that for the mental health, for the overall just recharging of the batteries and soul searching, I took 2 months off YouTube in the months of August and September, and then I came back for October spooky season. Hello, what's up? In the months of my hiatus, I took a break largely from horror to read books that were otherwise outside of my comfort zone, and I read memoirs. One of them was this one, I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. And for those of you who don't know, I was someone who did grow up with iCarly. I did watch it frequently as a child. Jeanette McCurdy is this former child star. iCarly was the show in Nickelodeon. It was a big deal. She was a child megastar. And in this book, she really does pull the curtain back on her dark personal life, so her abusive mom, and the very dark and abusive side of showbiz and everything that happened backstage that you would be very horrified to hear, let me just put it that way. And she does so with honesty and candor, but also some really funny humor. She is genuinely hilarious. I love this so much about this book because society is filled with perfect profiles. All of us exist as these avatars on social media, curated highlight reels of our lives that are the best of moments. There hardly ever is any brutal honesty, and the brutal honesty in this book was just so refreshing. At the end, after all the darkness, there truly was a sense of catharsis. You truly got to see that she finally got to share her story, from producers having a stranglehold on you and being in a society saying that you should never criticize your parents ever. And one of the main points in this book was ultimately that not every parent should be held on a pedestal. Some people just don't have that experience of being in a happy, healthy, loving home. Some people just don't have parents that understand them or care to understand them, and that's just so brutally honest and something that I rarely ever see in stories, and something that I was horrified to see in a memoir, seeing it actually happen to somebody else. And it shows that being a kid in a traumatizing environment is something you don't realize. When you're a kid in that environment, you don't realize that it's a traumatizing environment because you kind of just accept it as like the default, like, okay, I'm a kid, these are the parents, this is the situation I'm in, and this is just kind of how things are, you know? When you're a kid, that's just how that goes. You're very naive. You don't really know how to compare your situation to anything else because that's really just all you know. She didn't want to entertain the notion that her mom was abusive, and only after years of trauma and then eventually therapy and healing was she able to get a much clearer look at this situation overall. And the fact of the matter is like, they don't make Hallmark cards for abusive moms, so we all kind of just grow up with that Hallmark idea of what a parent ought to be like, and sometimes that's just not the case, you know? And she opens up about so many things, especially about the fact that her mom would really reinforce the idea that her mom knew best and she only wanted the best for her and that she would be nothing without her. And because she was a child star, in order to keep her looking young, her mom would restrict her calories, deprive her of nutrients so she wouldn't, you know, grow up and look more mature, and it was really fucked up. The brutal candor of which this story was delivered and the content of it just made this such a powerful read. It was very disturbing because as someone who grew up with iCarly, you just never know how much awfulness there is, because you look at celebrities, you see like, oh, they're living these beautiful, glamorous lives, But at the end of the day, no, they're probably living through some fucking shit, and this book shows that. And it's really good. It's honest, it's brutal, great stuff. So next I want to talk about a manga that has literally had me in a chokehold from when I first read it, and that manga is called Blue Flag by Kaito. I initially was not gonna read this manga because some friends of mine who I trust the opinion of gave it some not so good reviews, but I think Jordaline was telling me like, McKay, read this manga, like you're gonna love it. And I'm so glad that I did because I gave the entire series, all 8 volumes, collectively 5 stars. I read all 8 volumes in one day and I felt so burnt out, but just so fulfilled and full by the end. So this book is set in this Japanese high school and we follow these 4 main characters, 2 guys and 2 girls. And I don't really remember their names, but we learn this one girl has a crush on one guy, and whilst all this is happening, this one guy's male best friend has a crush on him, and this girl's female best friend has a crush on her. So there are some fucking complicated relationships. It's like this unexpected love quadrangle, and there are so many feelings, like unbeknownst to them, this other person has a crush on you and has had feelings for you this entire time. And let me just, that twist, that last panel at the end of volume 1 really had me shitting myself. There's just something so special to how Japanese slice of life stories are presented between this and Convenience Store Woman. That same subtle, nuanced version of storytelling that was applied over there lends itself so beautifully to this story about coming of age and young love and friendship and just all the complicated shit that comes with that. You have these characters that are just so distinct and just so different from one another, who just feel like such real life human beings. And the people around them, like the surrounding cast, you think that they would just be extras in the story, but no, some volumes show these extras as actual people that you would know, that you would have a conversation with in real life, that would remind you of what you had gone through at this age. It was just so good and so beautiful. So these characters are so full of life, but at the same time, they're young and they're coming into contact with the real world for the first time and seeing what a bitch life can be. And this makes you all the more glad that these people have found themselves and have found each other in such a turbulent world and turbulent time in growing up. And this series just shows you that friendships are fucking messy. Man, they're messy, but they're strong, and sexuality is confusing, and romantic relationships are way more complicated than you could think and require so much more work and communication than you would think at that age. You know, it's so much more than, okay, I have a crush on you, you have a crush on me, hey, like, no, that barely covers it. And they learn about all of this, and they also come face to face with the fact that the kind of relationship that you're in is going to be under so much scrutiny by other people in your circle, especially if it's like a same-sex couple. So the fact that there would be people in the story that react this way to certain characters is a very real thing. Blue Flag is slice of life that gets the life part down. When it does go there, it doesn't do so with overwrought big emotions. Like, it is very understated, it is very subtle, and there are just so many like poetic clues in the dialogue, and it's just so incredible. And certain aspects of the story really show you that people are at that age where they mistake pragmaticism as cruelty, where they have so much hope and they think that their jobs are going to be very much in line with their passions and interests. They don't realize all the compromises that are going to have to come with, you know, merely helping yourself survive in the world. And it's just so fucking good. Like, so many relatable issues were addressed in this manga. The ending was satisfying to me, I will say that. A lot of people had issues with volume 7, had issues with volume 8. Those people are not me. I just loved it. Everything about this manga just spoke to me. It has me in a chokehold. I just adore every single thing about this series. It's definitely a series that I think I'm gonna reread every year because I just love it with my entire fucking being, okay? Another book that I absolutely loved with my entire being was The Pisces by Melissa fucking Broder, okay? This book is one that I had owned physically since 2018 because the movie The Shape of Water came out, the Guillermo del Toro film, And that was my favorite movie of the year. And it's about a woman that does it, that connects privates with a fish, okay? With like a fish man. And in this book, I heard it was about a woman who gets it on with a merman. So I was like, oh my gosh, is this kind of like The Shape of Water? Like The Shape of Water in book form? Yes and no, okay? For one thing, this fucking book, man, like it was the most fucked up, darkly funny thing I had ever read. I would sell my soul to be best friends with Melissa Broder because this bitch understands my humor and my being on a cellular level. I felt like this book was a beautiful tapestry of art that was made solely for me and myself alone, and I just fucking loved it. The main character in this book, oh my gosh, this bitch is someone who admires dog shit, sucks at spending money, spends way too much time thinking about the mechanics of anal sex, fucks mermaids, and drops truth bombs about the pointlessness of it all while having her middle finger just pointed to the entire fucking world. I loved it, okay? It's like Melissa Broder was like, fuck you all, I don't care, and then started writing and didn't give a fuck. And so good. This book is about this woman who, I forget what her circumstance is in life, but she has to start over because she's going through some shit, and her sister tells her, hey, do you wanna just dog sit in my house? You can stay in my house while you're going through whatever you're going through while I'm out. You just need to watch my dog and exist. You can be here, use my shit, good stuff. And she says, yes, I will watch your dog, I will handle your shit, go do whatever you have to do, and I will watch your house. While she's watching her house, she goes to the beach, she thinks about life, and she bumps into this merman, this guy who's just like by the rocks. She discovers he's a merman, and they start to build this kind of relationship. I don't really want to give much away, but oh my gosh, the way that relationship turns out, it is just special. It was just like, yes, this book understands what happens when blank yada yada, okay? Let me just put it that way. It was just so good. Another book I really fucking loved that I read this year was one that I went in with not the best intentions, okay? And that book is Saint by Sierra Simone. I was going through like a smut phase. I heard about this book called Priest by Sierra Simone. I had read Sierra Simone before I read A Lesson in Thorns because so I heard that this author had written this book called Priest, which is like about priest smut, and I was like, interesting, but heteronormative. And then I realized that this was a series, and there was like a male-male pairing, and I was like, I'm reading this book, fuck the rest of the series, I'm skipping straight to this book, and bitch, this book was everything. Okay, it was everything. We follow these two men, Aiden and Elijah. They were in a relationship prior to the events of the story, but the relationship, you know, didn't work out. Aiden ended up leaving Elijah and his entire life to become this monk in this monastery, and Elijah ended up engaged to this other guy. But one thing leads to another, and Aiden has to go on this spiritual journey and literal journey. He's going on this journey to make sense of his inner world and his life and every decision he's made up until this point. And Elijah, through a certain series of events, ends up going on that journey with him. And this book had all the tropes that I wanted. It was slow burn, forced proximity, close proximity, but it wasn't like they have to be in the same specific place at the same time. It was like they are in the same place, but a wall is dividing them, but they're in such close proximity. And the tension, this book had more tension than half the fucking extreme horror books I read this year. Okay, it was a lot of tension. The build up and the fact that the tension is like so underscored by everything you learn about them throughout the story. I was going into this book expecting trashy priest smut, and although it does have the latter, there is nothing trashy about this story. Nothing at all. This book was profound, it was mature, it was so beautifully written, and I was just so emotionally invested with these two characters and what they were going through, and just seeing them navigate such mature adult situations. Not like mature like but mature like, wow, the depth of understanding that this author had for the inner turmoil and inner anguish and regret. Regret plays a huge role in this story, and it's something that is just permeating this entire atmosphere that these characters have found themselves in, and it is just so fucking beautiful. Alright, so I'm currently editing the video and I could have been more specific. So a lot of Aiden's internal turmoil comes with reconciling his Christian faith with his sexuality, because a lot of, doctrine says that it's a sin and he wants to adhere to his faith, but then he's also very much in love with Elijah, and a lot of that struggle is the main conflict in the story, and it's both an internal conflict and an external conflict. He struggles to reconcile his love with Elijah and reconcile that with his faith, and the way Sierra Simone goes about examining this conflict, which on one hand is between Aiden and Elijah, but on the other hand between Aiden and himself. And the way Sierra Simone goes about this and presented such a beautiful understanding of the human condition, and yeah, just thought that I'd add that in there. By the end of this book, I was a mess. I was an emotional mess. I was an emotional mess. And that line, if you've read this book, if you know, that line about the "don't make me compete with the fireflies in the cloister," dead, leveled, decimated, just deceased. It took me out. I was just like a fucking puddle in the corner of the room. It was a lot, okay? It was a huge thing, and yeah, let me just put it that way. And yeah, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was, slightly more personal, slightly more me sharing about myself. These books genuinely meant a lot to me as a person, and I'm really glad that I got to share my, full thoughts on them. I mean, yes, I have spoken about Blue Flag before, but the rest of the books in this list were ones that I read during my hiatus, and beyond Goodreads and maybe Instagram, I didn't get to really speak about them in depth on this channel and say what they meant to me. But yeah, so based on what I've said so far, let me know if you've got any recommendations on books that you think I should check out, and let me know if you've read any of these books and if you also got that same profound impact that they had on me. Okay, let me know. Chat with me in the comments. If you made it this far, okay, so the cover of Convenience Store Woman has a fish. Leave a fish in the comments, okay? Find your favorite fish emoji and just put it in the comments. Any fish will do. And yeah, with that being said, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in future videos, and as always, take care.